Namaste and good afternoon. My name is Jaya Manchakanti and I'm the President of IndianCare. At the outset, I'd like to thank the Australia-India Institute for inviting us to speak about our work during this India Week celebration. I'm joined today by Krina Shah, a recent international student graduate from University of Melbourne, and Dr. Jyotsna Rao, who is the International Student Project Coordinator at IndianCare. Before we launch into this webinar, we would like to first acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we all stand, and we pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. We would also like to pay our respects to the elders in our own South Asian communities. The topic of this webinar, EQ and IQ, are South Asian international students being supported, is deliberately posed as a provocative question so that we can get the audience thinking about this topic. We encourage you to ponder over this question while listening to our presentation, and feel free to provide comments or ask us questions in the chat line. We will endeavour to answer the questions as best as we can after our presentation, and we are leaving quite a bit of time for question-answer presentation because we feel that that would generate a better interaction. So before I hand it over to Jyotsna to talk about this subject, I first want to provide you some background information about IndianCare. IndianCare set up in 2013 with encouragement from the Victorian Multicultural Commission. This was at a time when the Indian population in Victoria was fast growing, yet there was a lack of a dedicated culturally sensitive welfare service for the Indian community. Since then, IndianCare continues to position itself as a conduit between the Indian community and the existing health and welfare sector. We work collaboratively with a wide variety of stakeholders, and we have now grown into an established organisation with a staff of 6 people, working on projects in relation to prevention and early intervention of family violence, prevention of alcohol harm, support to international students, a provision of an information support and referral service, and a COVID-19 related service, especially promoting relevant health and safety messages. Today's webinar showcases our international student project called Project SASS, which reached out to not only Indian international students, but the broader South Asian international students. There are currently over 60,000 South Asian international students in Victoria, with over 43,000 from India. Project SASS was led by IndianCare in collaboration with 10 other agencies and some students. It was a project funded by the Victorian Government through Study Melbourne, and we acknowledge their support. Our project aims to address the question posed in this seminar. So I'll now hand it over to Jyotsna to tell you more about it, after which Krina will provide her perspective as a student. We will then be happy to answer any questions you may have. So over to you, Jyotsna. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaya. Namaste and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jyotsna Rao, the International Student Welfare Program Coordinator for Project South Asian International Student Support, affectionately known as Project SASS amongst the student and the Study Melbourne community. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful afternoon. Melbourne's put up quite a bit of a show for India Week 2021. And as we reflect on our journey with the South Asian students. So this project was a co-design project. It was a student-led project, and I thank every one of the student leaders shown in this photograph. We had, it was a 10-member consortium of 5 universities, Melbourne Uni, RMIT, Victoria, La Trobe, and Federation. Each university selected 2 students as their representatives on the project reference group. The recruitment process was a pretty rigorous one, and the students had to go through an interview to be able to get the position on this group. We were also partnering with 5 community organizations: Australia India Society Victoria, Australia India Sports Council, Good Cycles Social Enterprise, Aussies Education and Migration Consultants, and Hindu Organizations and Temple Association Forum. As we know, students live in communities, and IndianCare takes on students on placement. We also meet them at the places where they work, typically in grocery stores, at restaurants, or in cleaning. During our conversations, students often told us about their concerns, and a lot of it was around the lack of knowledge of their rights as international students in Victoria, particularly around work rights, tenancy rights, and while they had very good content knowledge, they were also a bit underconfident of their skills and wanted more information about Australian workplaces and job readiness. Because of COVID and the fact that COVID had affected their family businesses in India and also impacted on their income here, they fell prey to many loan and fee scams. And of course, the layer of social isolation, loneliness, missing their families, and health literacy. So, Project SASS was developed. It was developed to support, empower, and educate the South Asian students from the countries of Nepal, Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. It was designed on the principles of co-design and collective impact. We had activities planned for the students, by the students, and for the students around rights and responsibilities, COVID-19, job readiness workshops, unpacking casual and contract employment, tenancy rights as international students, trying to gain entry points for volunteering and paid employment, and also provide them platforms to network with current industry professionals. So what did we do? We curated activities. We facilitated what they needed. We entered into partnerships to be able to deliver these programs. We had Vic Police come in and talk about scams, on how to recognize scams, particularly as the pandemic wore on. They were falling prey to loan scams on text messages and mobiles. Vic Police also gave the students information on ATM safety, on public transport safety, and the correct procedure to report cases of racism and discrimination. We invited the department to speak on COVID-19 testing. This was particularly crucial to our students because our students work in casual, insecure jobs and were always scared and worried about giving up their shifts and missing out on earning that income. So we had to tell them that the testing was free and they were eligible for COVID payment. We then had Good Cycle Social Enterprise that organized an interactive workshop where the students were able to actually unpack the key selection criteria, a very important part of Australian workplace recruitment processes. There were some students who also wanted to understand whether they needed to know about footy to be able to get a job. And we told them that it was important to value their lived experience. If you worked for a team, that was fine. We asked Gabrielle Marchetti from JobWatch to come and unpack the work rights. This was very important for our students because they either work as delivery drivers or courier drivers or in cleaning, and these are casual or the gig economy. While the pandemic wore on in Melbourne, the visa became an issue because the updates were very important. The students were coming up to re-enroll. They hadn't attended their classes. Some of them had taken, a break from studies. So we had Aussie's group of education and migration consultants, one of our partners, to come and talk about visa updates. And of course, every student dreams of landing that job. What after studies? And so we realized the importance of building up a LinkedIn profile. We invited Vinesh Balan, who has built up quite a big following among the students, to come and talk about networking and using LinkedIn profile as a tool. Then we realized that our students needed key entry points into corporates that were willing to take them on as employees or as paid interns. So we tapped into our vast South Asian diaspora and got hold of people to sit on our panel. We had people from Accenture, from Benchmark Corporate, and Simple Geek Notes who answered many questions on what they needed to polish up on to be able to get into industry. One of our panelists was also from the Aussies People and Culture team, who actually told the students how to add oomph to their cover letter. Tenant Victoria came in and talked about tenancy right for international students. This was a very important point because students were forced to move into shared accommodation. Some of them were actually paying cash as rent and also sharing accommodation. So while they were able to pay that small amount of rent, what they lost was privacy. Then came the fun bit. We ran a session of life in Australia and we had a quiz on Aussie slangs and how to live here and enjoy the hot sun, surf, and the barbecue. We also realized while we were talking with students and the COVID vaccine hit the market, that our students were quite worried and scared about taking the vaccine and were not entirely sure if they had to pay for it. So we got an expert clinician from our South Asian community who has been working as a GP for over 45 years. He came and talked and told the students that it was quite okay to get the vaccination, and more importantly, it was free. Our last and final event was with VicWise, a collaboration on Together Towards Tomorrow. It was extremely important at this time in around May when I think the third lockdown had happened and we were forced to move our event online. We had to provide the students with hope. And so we designed Together Towards Tomorrow, where we had people to come and share their stories on how they made it in Australia. Our students need entry points for volunteering programs to be able to get that local work experience. And SMRC designed a volunteering program with us, with the students' inputs, to be able to provide the students that local experience. So how did we then engage with the community? We relied heavily on social media. One thing we do really well in common is spread the word around. So we relied on our Study Melbourne network. We had big, and we continue to have big champions in Study Melbourne and Global Victoria. We relied on their social media platforms, on our personal and professional and student networks, on university networks and our partner networks. The diversity and inclusion officers from community organizations and the project officers and from the local councils. We used all forms of social media to put that word and amplify the word around. In fact, at my local greengrocer, I am better known as the lady who works with SASS. So I would like to emphasize and re-emphasize that this project was 100% delivered online. 792 students called our helpline. Over 500 students were supported by emergency relief during the first lockdown, thanks to the Department of Premier and Cabinet. 9 of our students found work. IndianCare led the way by employing 7 of them. Our social media posts garnered an estimated 34,000 views, and these are results from April. We covered 26 local government areas. We cemented 7 new collaborations and designed a volunteering program with Southern Migrant and Refugee Center, or SMRC. We also, one of our students, Shireen Abraham, University of Melbourne, wrote a report on barriers to employment for international students. Shireen represented their views, and we are hoping to publish this work. And as COVID came along and more COVID happened and we went into lockdown, there were 4 issues that got more and more highlighted: the social isolation, the loneliness, and the missing family. While international students live in communities, they do not go back to family during holidays within Victoria or at the end of the day, whereas domestic students do. And this was very important because this was a shared concern. We understood this. So where do we go from here? Study Melbourne identified and recognized during April, when the COVID situation became quite bad in India, that the students needed support. Also, students were experiencing COVID guilt and COVID fear for their families back home. Every time they heard the news that someone had passed away, one of our students said, "Jyotsna, this is no longer a number, it's becoming a name, and it comes very close." The guilt was that Australia had kept them safe, but they couldn't do anything and they were powerless to keep their family safe. At this time, Study Melbourne came and said that they would be able to provide support to our students. What this particular grant does is allows our Indian international students to then access affordable support. We are able to pay for that counseling support on their behalf. We would like to also connect the students to domestic students and to form that broader community and provide that social cohesion and include them in our conversations. We also want to design cultural competence for universities, colleges, and mainstream services to explain to them that sometimes our experiences are unique and that the barriers we face are also unique. So our next new activity coming, designed from what we have heard our students express is Project SAS and Wellbeing. And thanks to Study Melbourne, this has been funded by the International Student Welfare Program 2021. The objectives of this project is to build resilience and support students' emotional and social well-being, and foster and facilitate connections with peers, community, and support services. We have now learned that we cannot take in-person events for granted. Therefore, I have very cleverly designed this particular activity to be around digital platforms, digital resources. And if we get to see each other and share a plate of food in physical world, we will take that too. So what we will do is design plain language digital resources, normalize the talk around mental well-being, and also our languages do not have an explanation for anxiety. If we use the term dil dhadakta hai, we mean heart is beating. That is not anxiety. If we say heart palpitations, it doesn't mean the same. So we want to make that into normal conversation. Our students, when the lockdown happened and there was a 5-kilometer radius, our students rely on word of mouth referral. They realized that they needed to go beyond 5 kilometers, but they couldn't. So we've stepped in and we are going to help design a navigator tool, which is customized to search for services within the 5-kilometer radius and facilitate our connections to the student and the community through rhythm and movement. This time, our partners for this project are Enliven Victoria, Access Health and Community, SMRC, Multicultural Arts Victoria, Indian Students Association Victoria, Federation University, and Peter Vadivelu Music. So I'm using this this afternoon to also plug our next event as part of our collaboration with Wyndham City. We are having a social meetup for Indian international students where we will be talking about well-being. And well, we miss food in physical settings. So what we've done is actually got Sarvana Bhavan to provide food vouchers, and we're going to give that, distribute to all the attendees. And this is our innovative way of making sure that we are sharing our food as well as we are meeting on an online platform. So please spread the word and register for the event. And finally, I would like to thank IndianCare and our team, our colleagues, our well-wishers, our funding organizations, and everybody without whom Project SAS just would not have been possible. And while, yes, pandemic and COVID and everything and lockdown, it has been a wonderful, positive project that has connected many, many students to share their concerns and supported them during the journey. You can find us on indiancare.org.au. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jyotsna. That was a very nice presentation I will take on now. So hello and namaste to everyone present here. Thank you, Australia India Institute, for giving me the honor to share my experience at this event. I'm Krina Shah. I'm a Master of Social Work graduate from the University of Melbourne. I'm currently working as a volunteer family and community support worker at IndianCare. To give a brief background about myself, I arrived to Australia in 2018, so it's been over 3 years since I've lived here. It's safe to say that the pandemic has drastically changed the lives of so many people and international students like myself. When the pandemic hit, I was in the 3rd year of my degree, going on placement soon. And my placement changed overnight, and from a hospital social work placement, it became a research placement. But at that time, I was also isolated because my housemates left for India and I was doing a placement alone at home. To top that, my aging parents tested positive for COVID in India. It was a very stressful time to juggle my mental health and navigate a research placement. It was around the time that I started questioning that what supports do international students have in terms of social, structural, and financial assistance. Thankfully, the universities provided students with some financial relief, and the community support stepped up during the time for food and other essential support. But what about mental health? I will speak about it in the next few minutes. But to answer the core question, are South Asian international students being supported? The short answer is yes. But the long answer is there's a lot more that needs to be done. There are a lot of resources available to support students. Luckily, I was in an area of study that allowed me to explore the idea of self-care, seeking counseling support, and to look for organizations like IndianCare that provide support services. It was around the same time in August 2020 that I was chosen by the university to participate in Project SAS. You've already heard from Jyotsna that the details of the project, but I'm going to share with you how it impacted me as a student. So my involvement in the project connected me with South Asian international students who were experiencing similar feelings like me, as like social isolation, keeping up with education, financial stress, and the constant news of COVID, both in India and Australia. As it was a student-led project, it was also a great avenue for me to meet my peers and design programs to support each other and more international students with the issues they were facing, like housing support, employment needs, and the legal rights as international students. So participating in this project also helped me and also many other international students to develop leadership and communication skills. As a social work graduate and a mental health advocate for international students' mental well-being, I had the opportunity to run a session about self-care as part of Project SAS. The project coordinator, Dr. Jyotsna Rao, and I explored the details that South Asian students do not speak openly about mental health or also do not look after their well-being due to external stressors like managing work or parental and peer pressure. But through this self-care session, I had the opportunity to share my lived experience in a closed group, of course, maintaining the confidentiality, but also providing the students a safe space to share about their life. There were students from IT, engineering, and other backgrounds that came forth and shared that their understanding of self-care and mental well-being was limited, and sessions like this are very helpful for them. Through SAS, I also had the opportunity to speak at a forum organized by Study Melbourne about international students' experience in Victoria during COVID crisis. And I shared with the group that it was a challenging time for students, and also spoke about COVID guilt. That while I was safe here in this country, which I'm so grateful for, the people in my country, my own parents and my family were suffering. And as a social worker, I especially felt helpless that I cannot go back and support the community. Lucky for us, the Victorian Government, the universities and community organizations like IndianCare are working to support international students. But I believe at a time like this, along with financial and medical support, people need hope. And I think that's all we are holding on to right now, especially us as international students. The hope that the virus will vanish, the hope of going back to our countries, just navigating the university, getting good grades, finding jobs. That has not been easy at all. I can speak from personal experience that it's not easy to find a job as an international student due to lack of local experience, despite being in a field like social work, which we hear there's a huge demand for social workers. But I feel that international students constantly feel overlooked, and I believe this is an area where the universities can support the students. And I think the least we can expect from the community is also kindness, and for international students to feel like we belong here. I was fortunate that my university was supportive and understanding that it was a time of crisis for me, and provided me with extensions for my submissions. And I also reached out for counseling support, which helped me a lot. But other international students like myself also need that. In consultation with other SAS students leader, we found that international South Asian international students are slowly opening up to seeking counseling support, but they want a familiar face to talk to. In technical terms, the students expect a culturally trained counselor to support their emotional well-being. And since South Asian international students are a big cohort, so providing culturally trained counselors and meals or vouchers will be extremely helpful. To sum up, I'm extremely excited for the second phase of Project SAS because it focuses more on emotional well-being and through peer support sessions. And thanks to Study Melbourne for funding this. I hope this message reaches out to many students that please, there is support available. Just do a quick Google search. There are many multilingual services available for you. Until then, I will continue to advocate for the well-being of international students. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Krina. It was such a good description you gave of your experience and the positiveness as well in amidst the difficulties that you were facing. We do have some questions. The first one is from Neha, and I'll just push it up so I can see it properly. And she asks, when will students and other general public be eligible to get COVID-19 vaccination? And of course, we know that there is a problem with supply of the Pfizer vaccine. So I guess until we get the supply of that vaccine, then we will see some movement in that area. But I think those who do want to use the AstraZeneca and get the go ahead from their GP, I think that is a possibility to do that now. Jyotsna, do you want to add any more to that?
So the eligibility is, you can check your eligibility online and have that conversation when you call 1800 number. You can find it on COVID-19 booking online, something like that. What I want to say is speak to your GP, and you can take the AstraZeneca vaccine if it is suitable for you, or get the Pfizer depending on your eligibility. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, the next question from Saleha is how will you break barriers among South Asian students to get help when they're not feeling well mentally? I think Karina touched on this, that the students are slowly opening up to this idea. I think if we potentially use the word well-being, because that is a little bit more friendly terminology, perhaps we can try and break up some of those barriers. But I might hand over to Karina as a recently graduated social work student and, experience with other students. Maybe you can add something else to this.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Jaya. And I understand we are going over time, but please stick around.
No, we've got time.
Sure. So I believe, yeah, what you said about terminology is extremely important. And having sessions like these where they see familiar faces of South Asian counselors, men and women, we also find that a lot of men or male international students do not seek support because they're obviously so involved in their work life and just the rush of making money at this time. So we need to promote that on a educational level, because courses like IT engineering might not touch on subjects of self-care. I was lucky from social work, so I had the idea. So I think there is one place that we can start about mental well-being, just to have that conversation.
Yeah. Jyotsna, did you want to add any more to that?
I think that there is a need to understand this cohort, the youth, around emotional and social well-being, and particularly from the cult community to which South Asians belong and fall under. I think the first thing is to actually get those conversations happening, because we do live with our parents and we live for many, many years with them until we actually get married. So so actually breaking that barrier of discussing it in the family environment, and also normalizing these conversations. It's okay to not be okay. I think that's a very important message that we need to tell our students. And the other thing I also would like to add here is it's very important to have conversations with the support services and actually provide them on what our culture is and what our family life looks like, and how we live in multi-generational households where we don't have the privacy of our own bedrooms or anything like that. So all those type of issues that our students face, we need to talk about. And the shift from India to Australia, it is a big shift. It is a big shift, and I think that is something we need to discuss too. So that's all I have to add. Thanks.
And can I just please remind the audience that we do have some ability to support Indian international students with counseling support. So please do reach out to us. We have people who can support you, in your language potentially, as well as matching the gender as well. So we have male and female counselors. So please do reach out. It doesn't need to be full-on counseling. It'd be a discussion on well-being, and that's perfectly all right as well. So we have quite a few questions rolling in, and thank you very much for people for your interest. We are going until 4:30, so there's plenty of time for questions. The next one is from Sumit, thank you, Sumit, for congratulating us with our work. You are asking that you're curious to the extent to which well-settled migrants from South Asia are interested in the well-being of the international students, I'm presuming, as individuals, as fellow countrywomen and men, and how has IndianCare experience been? I'm presuming you're talking particularly about international students here, not the full student cohort, but we are very attuned to the thought of trying to bring domestic students and international students together. So we are hoping to hold a session very soon in the Indian Consul General's office to bring the two different student cohorts together. But also, I think the good thing about Study Melbourne's grant to us is I think Study Melbourne has recognised the importance of community and its involvement in supporting students So they have funded us for this work last year and have continued to fund us this year. And I think in recognition of the need to involve more from the community side to support the students. I'm sure Jyotsna and Krina will have lots to add to that, so I'll hand over to you both.
Maybe Jyotsna can speak as an individual who's lived in this country for a long time.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you want to have a go first? That's such a good question. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kane. And I know exactly where it's coming from as well, because I am one of those well-settled migrants in Melbourne. So I think we have COVID-19 to thank for the whole situation, because we have seen through SASS, the student being supported by the community, by the diaspora, and they have stepped up. Our 5 community partners were there every step of our way while we were supporting the students. They have amplified the message, and we, even our collaborations have actually essentially been community, you know. So yes, what we also would like to say now is IndianCare is part of the Indian community. Indian community is part of IndianCare, and we can take donations. It is there on our website, especially now when the students need emergency relief. So please find us and come, and we have volunteering options. We welcome people to come and volunteer. We can't do everything ourselves, so please join our journey. So I would put, how has IndianCare's experience been? I can't talk for everyone, but I can talk for myself. It has been a mixed bag, largely very positive. Yes.
I think it's been it's our first experience working with international students, and I've been pleasantly happy with the co-design element of this project. The students really did get in there to request what they wanted, and we hope that will continue with our next project as well. So the next question is from Kim, who asks, and thank you for your support and congratulations. With the new study, is there any scope for offshore students? Sadly not. So it is, I think we are confined to onshore students with this project. Jyotsna, did you want to add any more to that?
Thank you, Kim, for this question. So the remit of SAS, because it's funded by Study Melbourne for the students in Victoria, it is limited to the students who are within our borders. We're very hopeful that we can collaborate on other projects that are supporting offshore students. There are a few that Study Melbourne funds. So is there any scope? I think advocacy, yes, and maybe in the next couple of months, we could be including them, yeah.
Yeah, we'll certainly keep an eye on that one. Then Neha continues to say people are hesitant to take AstraZeneca vaccine. Yes, that's true. And we've been trying to promote some videos to reduce the vaccine hesitancy. So do look on our Facebook page, do share those videos with other people to try and reduce that hesitancy. Saleha said that maybe Moderna can be an option, and yes, hopefully that'll be available pretty soon for us. So Kim, your next question is, for the students who participated in the study, did you feel supported by your peers outside of these communities being discussed at university or not? Over to you, Krina.
Interesting question, because when the project started last year, it was during lockdown, and this was completely delivered online. So I believe it was so focused on the South Asian student community. I believe the word did not go out as much to the peers in the domestic students. So no, not I did not, there wasn't really any support required from their end, because the project was almost self-sustaining and it was co-designed. So not really, no.
Okay, thank you. Jyotsna, did you want to add anything to that? Or?
I think COVID actually really messed it all up, to be quite honest. And yeah, that's all I can say.
Thank you for your well wishes, Manorini. And we've done such good work with VicWise and really want to thank VicWise also for their support of Project SAS. So next one from Keon. My only worry is the support is heard and reach to only university enrolled students, while a majority of students from India go to smaller colleges and schools where support is not very strong. Also, they often come from different backgrounds when compared to students studying in bigger universities. How will we reach out to those vulnerable students? Going forward, we are going to be reaching out to those smaller colleges and students as well. So we're not only confined to the major universities, but just now you can speak more to that, can you?
Yeah, sure. So it's a great question and a great observation, because this is exactly what we saw. Our first project for ISWP 2020 focused on 5 main universities. And while we were rolling it out at the beginning, we actually limited it to the students of these 5 universities. And then we realized that there were students from smaller private colleges that wanted to attend our sessions. And so what we did was we started promoting it and also running it as webinars, which then made it open and accessible to all students in Victoria, where they were not confined to Melbourne, nor were they from the 5 partner universities. And Project SAS and Wellbeing, which is the next new activity from ISWP 2021, is very carefully has been designed to be able to take students from all different education providers. So I'm saying it now that it is open, and the fact that we are designing and developing digital resources is again to make it more available, not only here, but also overseas to students who are stuck in India and wanting to access material here. How can we reach out? One, we can reach out by broadening our scope, which we have done through SAS and Wellbeing 2021. And IndianCare has people who will connect the students to support services, particularly those who need extra language support. We do that. Mainly Punjabi, Hindi. We do find people, with Bengali, Tamil languages. So we try and do it like that as well.
Thanks, Jyotsna. Krina, do you want to add anything?
No, I'm good. I think Jyotsna has covered everything.
All right, great. You will note that one of our staff members kindly put up a link to our donations tab. We welcome any donations, small or big, and we will use that to support the general community, international students, particularly for any type of emergency relief. Thank you, Brian, for being here and also promoting the AstraZeneca and saying that you've felt well. I've had 2 doses myself as well and feeling quite good. Thank you, Feifei, for being here, and we look forward to working with you as well. So if there are no further questions, we will plug again the Wyndham City Council event. Okay, Kim's wrote something else. I'll come to that. The Wyndham City Council event on August 17th. And there's a link to that. Please, South Asian international students are welcome to that. Mainly Indian international students, because Wyndham City Council is trying to reach out to the Indian international students. So please do join if you can, and you'll get a $20 food voucher as well. So Kim is saying, I really like the innovation for the food vouchers. Yes, it's a good one, that one. So maybe we'll plug a few other things too, to reiterate what we've said during our presentation. There is counselling support for Indian international students that we've been funded for, and that's only until end of November this year. So please, if you're interested, do reach out to IndianCare. The Wyndham City Council event, also there will soon be coming up 2 events that we're organising at the Indian Consulate, which if you keep looking at our Facebook site, you'll get more information on that. Now there's this long message here. Jyotsna, have you had a chance to read it while I was talking?
Yes, I have, and Keon, about NIB. We're very happy to have a chat offline. Please do contact us. I have put it up. I had put it up on my slides where you can and how you can. This is a very important question, and we also have Mano in the audience who also works with private healthcare providers and students. So, you know, if we work together, I think this will be a very good thing for the students' health. Dr. Kani says, high quality education is something that Victoria is proud of. That is why so many parents send their kids here to study. Not all students necessarily want to find a job here, settle here, and most will return home. Returnees are our ambassadors of Melbourne, of Australia. While it's important to take a problem-focused deficit perspective, one could also approach this differently. How about a project that is making students' time here warm and lovely and fulfilling? We cannot agree more.
Yeah.
And you know, particularly in the South Asian community, where we tend to actually communicate using the spoken word and not through pages and websites, I think this is a very important point. And so, yes, we will definitely consider, and fingers crossed, we'll take this further. Thank you.
I have to say that IndianCare, while we may have presented today as the issues, we always approach our work through an asset-based community development approach, building on the strengths of people rather than you know, looking only focusing on the deficits. Saying that we can't ignore the deficits and we need to address them. But when we approach our work with students, we do build on strengths. But I think, Karina, it would be really good to hear from you in terms of, yes, when you go, if you were to go back to India, what sort of ambassador role will you play in talking about your time here in Australia?
I would say it's a wonderful place to be. Melbourne has so much to offer in terms of travel tourism, especially because there's just so much to go around, even in regional Victoria. It's sad that I did not have the opportunity to explore that, because for the first year when I was here, it's always a time to make money, focus on studies, and COVID happened. So that's unfortunate. But I think students coming forth will have a lot to explore, and I'm excited for them. And if I go back, I will definitely say that come to Melbourne, experience the community culture here, which is really strong. Of course, there will always be a divide of us as South Asian students and the local people here. But I feel they try their best to make us feel welcome, and you will always have a smiling face wherever you go, and good coffee.
And in fact, we appreciate the students so much that we've actually employed quite a few of them and given them, you know, proper salary. So we try to build on that strength that the students bring. And, you know, it might be only for short contracts and they may have to return back to India, but hopefully they'll take that good experience back with them. So Manorini agrees with Sumit's comment. So we will take that on board, focusing on the strengths. And Lynette congratulates us on our project. Thank you. So any final words from Jyotsna or Karina?
I just want to say thank you to all the panelists here, Jyotsna and Jaya, also Australia Indian Institute for organizing this event. And thanks to all the attendees for their lovely questions and their wishes for us. I hope Project SAS goes ahead and a lot more students are supported. Thank you.
Thanks, Karina.
I would like to say thank you for this opportunity for us to share our work, and also that Melbourne Uni was one of our partners, and I met lovely people at Australia India Institute as well through SAS. I just want to sum it up in the words of Fiona Letos, who's the director of Global International Education, Global Victoria, and I was very fortunate to hear her speak at the VicWise AGM, where she said, international students are a highly connected and talented global pool. It is in our best interest to keep them here and, accept them for who they are and value their lived experience. And I think that's a very important point. With our borders being closed, these are students who have been trained by us, and therefore we can make them feel welcome, not only through SAS, but through the broader community. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Jyotsna. So we'll draw to a close. Just Manorani saying VicWise is working with City of Melbourne to run some interactive programs for the students. COVID has caused a halt, however, students look out for these warm, fun programs when lockdown eases. Definitely, we'll all look forward to some fun times together. We're appreciative of the great placements you offer. Thank you, Jennifer. All right, well, if there's no further questions, we'll bring it to a close. I just want to say thank you to Australia-India Institute. In this year, the 75th year of independence of India. It's a special year for us. Do look out for our events. And yeah, we will keep supporting the students and working with the students into the future, hopefully. All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.